Hello everybody, you're welcome back again to the Reggae Appreciation Society. The highly prolific, controversial, brilliant and fiery Sizzla Kalonji is one of the most successful reggae artists of the 21st century. With more than 60 albums to his credit, he burst onto the scene as one of the leading lights of his generation and one of the frontmen of the Rasta revolution that began in the mid-1990s. That movement swept across the reggae scene like a hurricane and overwhelmed the prevailing slackness culture, riddled with gun talk and sex, which had taken over in the post-Bob Marley era. This Rasta revolution, or renaissance, was led initially by the likes of Garnet Silk, Tony Rebel and Luciano, but with the tragic passing of Garnet Silk in 1994, Sizzla was thrust into the front row of that cultural movement. The entrance of the then teenager led to a super infusion of his militant Rasta worldview that helped shape the cultural landscape of reggae music for years to come, and even drew criticism for his overly aggressive views on many topics. On top of being a devout Rastafarian, his incredible talent shot him into superstardom, with his rapid-fire, melodic sing-jay style winning him legions of fans. But despite his incredible start as a devout holy Rasta, Sizzla's career has over time become something of a paradox, with the artists being heavily criticized over the years for swimming in the same rivers of slackness that he came to clean up almost 3 decades ago. Let's take a look at his journey and try to answer the question, did Sizzla Kalonji actually sell out and go slack? Sizzla was born Miguel Orlando Collins on the 17th of April 1976 at St. Mary Parish, Jamaica, to devout Rastafarian parents who were members of the Bobo Ashanti movement. While still very young, his family moved to Augustown, where he would grow up. His father was a mechanic who operated a garage, and young Miguel had dreams of one day building his own career as a mechanic. He enrolled at Dunoon Technical High School in Kingston in furtherance of that dream, and was actually a gifted welder and automobile panel beater. As a young boy, he was always very busy, sometimes fixing as many as 5 cars for different customers at the same time across different garages in Kingston, making loads of money which he would spend at school with his friends. His first passion was fixing cars, but his second was music, and he would sing all the time. After sharpening his skills to a high level, he got a job as a DJ with the Caveman Hi-Fi sound system, where his rough, gravelly tone and razor-sharp sing-jay style quickly earned him a solid reputation. And by 1994, he had recorded his first single for a small record label. He gave himself the name Sizzla Kalonji, with Sizzla meaning burning essence and Kalonji meaning victorious. He would record many unacclaimed and overlooked singles for many producers and small labels in those early years, and made little headway until he came in contact with his mentor in producer Homer Harris. Harris was the same man who had tutored Buju Banton and nurtured him into a success a few years earlier. It was Harris who helped Sizzla develop his unbeatable style and eventually introduced him to legendary Jamaican saxophonist Dean Frazier. Frazier was then the music director at Exterminator Records, owned by iconic producer Philip Fatis Burrell. Fatis saw Sizzla's talent and quickly signed him to his label, which at the time was the engine room of the roots reggae revival. That label had conscious stars like Luciano, Tony Rebel and Inika Mose on its roster. He began to tour with his bandmates and was opening act for Luciano during the latter's tours in Europe and the US, which were being organized to promote the Jam Messenger album. Sizzla had a slow and difficult start as his music just wasn't received well at first, but he kept on recording and kept turning out singles from 1995 up until the end of 1996. It was in those tough days that he recorded some of his greatest songs like No One Like Jah, Did You Ever, and his future smash hit Praise Ye Jah. All the hard work and grinding paid off by 1997, and he became a phenomenon on the reggae scene. He released 3 singles in Mountain, Babylon Cowboy and Kings of the Earth, which all took Jamaica by storm early that year. What would become his trademark prolific output of music showed in that period, as he released 2 albums over the summer of 1997. The first one being Praise Ye Jah, which featured the smash hit of the same name, and Black Woman and Child, which is regarded as one of his greatest songs till date. He not only became successful in a commercial sense, he was receiving glowing critical reviews by industry gatekeepers who praised his delivery and content. Sizzla's music was just exemplary of what Bobo Ashanti Rastas are all about, simply uncompromising and militant. Songs like No White God were seemed inflammatory, intolerant and offensive, with lots of criticisms even coming from other Rastafarian groups. As the 90s came to an end, Sizzler was now a megastar. Luciano, who had been the main man at Exterminator Records, had left and Sizzler had become the label's biggest star. His prolific pace continued into 1998 and his releases were as successful as they were rapid, with 5 albums released in that single year. Those albums boasted of big singles including Love Among My Brethren and Rain Shower. He was by this time a phenomenon and massive sensation. He kept up the pace with a slew of albums and big singles back to back, which were simply blazing with spiritually loaded messages. But with the dawning of the new millennium, the atmosphere in the music industry began to change all over again. By the late 1990s, the Rasta revolution was so hot that it seemed as if the slackness could never return. But by the year 2000, it seemed as if slackness was making a comeback, with artists like Elephant Man and Vybz Kartel establishing themselves as major stars with music that was simply dripping with themes of sex and violence. It's not very clear whether Sizzler got sucked into the slack habits of the audiences he was performing to, if he was trying to move with the trend, or simply that success had derailed his direction as a conscious artist and Rastafarian. After a righteous start, he was starting to perform lewd songs which fell under the banner of slackness that the Rasta revolution was supposed to be fighting. He began to receive a lot of negative reviews and condemnation from the fans in response to songs like 2001's Pump Up Ha Pum Pum, which earned him a lot of knocks in the public space, and he was labeled a sellout by many hardcore fans. He retreated to the studios, desperate to win back the love of the fans, who were yearning for a return to the days of Praise Ye Jah and Black Woman and Child. He responded in 2002 with what many Sizzler fans consider his best album till date, in the phenomenal The Real Thing album, a stunning compilation packed with roots reggae and lovers rock material that was produced by the late legendary genius producer Bobby Digital. Every track on that album is a bona fide classic, and many singles spent many weeks on the Jamaican and international charts. Songs like Why Should I, Just One of Those Days, and Mash Down once again shot him into the limelight and the stratosphere that was reserved for legends. The song Thank You Mama was so well received that it was even played in Jamaican churches to mark Mother's Day for years. But since then, Sizzler had made several conscious albums, but strangely, he's punctuated that stream of music with slackness several times. And on top of that, Sizzler has had several brushes with the law that have again brought his Rasta credentials into question, carrying out acts at total variance with his other sides. Sizzler is a man of many parts. Aside from being a musician, he's a mechanic, philanthropist, farmer, and motorcycle stuntman. His charity organization, the Sizzler Youth Foundation, is dedicated to youth empowerment, education, and leadership training. But musically speaking, there are so many of his hardcore fans who feel that Sizzler reached his peak with his 2002 album, The Real Thing, and since then has dabbled too much into other genres, experimenting with rhythms which they feel are not reggae in its true form. His collaborations with DJ Khaled seem to fall into that category, and after Sizzler dramatically burned the plaques that commemorated the single's success, many fans seem to be vindicated that they were right about Sizzler making that wrong move in the first place. Not to mention his 2023 album, I Grade, which sounds like an R&B hip-hop album with no semblance to reggae except for the Jamaican accents. In terms of slackness, only one track on the album, titled Gyal Dem Nuff, has lyrics which could be deemed as slack, while the rest are of a conscious nature, if you can overlook the hip-hop beats. So to answer the million-dollar question, the Sizzler sellout, I personally believe that he's compromised his core foundations for the sole purpose of remaining relevant in the rapidly changing music environment, instead of charting the course and determining the culture as an icon of a statue should do. He's never descended to the depths of Pump Ha Pum Pum, thank goodness, but hasn't reached the heights of The Real Thing either. His place in history as an icon and a great is definitely secured, but I'm sure his fans would love to see a return to the inspirational, red-hot and firebrand revolutionary that helped terraform the reggae scene into its Rasta image before he became rich and comfortable. There's no doubt that he still has the ability, so let's keep our fingers crossed and hope that he once again finds his inspiration and finds the Sizzla Kalonji that blew us all away in the 1990s. So there you have it. Thank you for watching the video today. Please leave a like, subscribe, and until next time, Jah bless.